Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with me, Christian Harris. I'm joined today by Gerald Whitehouse, who is a specialist in the field of DSE, hence the title of the episode, the A to Z, using the American pronunciation of DSE. Now, DSE, display screen equipment, is a risk that is not only relevant to the vast majority of us within the workplace, but has taken on a new realm since COVID, working from home, as well as the trends around iPads, smartphones, etc. So it's a really relevant conversation, and Gerald shares some of his knowledge and insights and gives us some practical tips on what we can do to be compliant and to make sure that our staff are looked after when it comes to DSE, as well as kind of some of the resultant benefits of that. So here we go with the conversation between myself and Gerald Whitehouse.
Welcome to the Safety and Risk Success podcast with Christian Harris. We believe that proactive safety and risk management powers business performance. Each week we explore this theme, sharing guests, stories, insights, trends, hints and tips. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms, and video versions are available on YouTube. For now, let's join the conversation with Christian.
Thanks for joining me today on the podcast, Gerald.
My pleasure, Christian. Thanks for inviting me. Great to be here.
No, it's good. And we're going to be covering a topic that we haven't talked about on the podcast before, so I think that's really valuable. And it's a topic that I'm sure, as you will tell us in a minute, is going to be relevant to, I suspect, pretty much everybody that could be in the audience. So hence inviting you on. So we're going to talk about DSE. So do you want to just explain kind of what that is to start with, in case somebody doesn't know what it is, and then perhaps give us an idea of the size and the scope of the, I won't call it a DSE problem, but the sort of DSE exposure, shall we say?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, the DSE regulations were brought into being back in 1993 because the powers that be in those days recognised that computer work was becoming widespread through offices, and that continuous use of computers would create musculoskeletal problems. So that's the physical risks, physical discomfort, also with visual and mental issues for working with computers. So what they did was they introduced some legislation, which the UK call the DSE Regulations, to prevent physical, visual and mental issues due to working at a computer. That's why the regs are there. And the regs, they are mandatory. So a bit like if you want to drive a car, you tax, you insure. If you employ people who work at a computer, you comply with the legislation. It's not difficult, but it needs to be done, and there are real tangible benefits for doing so.
Okay.
And
so, go on. It's relevant to pretty much everybody then, because we're all on computers nowadays, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think, well, in my experience, everybody I ever meet, has suffered an ache or pain or a twinge or discomfort because they overwork at a computer. They don't take a break, and their wrists will start hurting, or their neck, or they get a headache. And these are all due to the fact that they're not really working as they might. And a little bit of training, a little bit of advice of what they should and might be doing can help alleviate and prevent all those issues.
Yeah. And in your experience then, if this is something that is mandatory to consider or do something about, what sort of percentage of organisations would you say are doing a good in quote marks job currently versus a bad in inverted commas job?
Yeah, I've done a couple of polls on this, and most people agree that the majority of employers are not complying fully. And I think you can say maybe 30% do a great job. They train, they assess, they look after their staff, they value the benefits of people working well without discomfort. A RAF said that, say, another further 50% will be doing some form of mainly reactive DSE work. So they will do something about it if somebody complains that they've got a complaint that their chair is broken, their glare and reflections affecting their eyesight, then they're going to do something about it. And that then leaves a further 15 or so percent that absolutely just turn a blind eye to it and don't bother. And
it's always interesting to think about the sort of rough proportions of organizations that take things seriously and don't. And I guess that there'd probably be a correlation between, you know, those companies that are doing a good job in this area and maybe those companies that are doing a good job in the sort of mental health kind of arena as well. I'm sure that, you know, it's the companies that really care about their staff and see them as assets and you know, want to invest in them, that are the ones that do best. Would that be fair?
Yes, absolutely. The key in today's world of looking after well-being of one's personnel, the key from my perspective is to not persuade, but to let employers know that there are real benefits to the bottom line by complying. If you train people of why should anybody know how far their monitor should be? Why should they know how high it should be, at what distance your chair should be, how to use the mouse, how to position equipment? There's no reason why anybody knows these things. And that's why a lot of people are sitting with their monitors miles away or monitors right up in their face and working an hour on non-stop and then getting aches of pain. Good training will enable people to set their workstation up properly so they don't get these aches and pains. Good training will advise them to, after 20 minutes, get up, walk around the room, work around your office, go make a cup of tea. Don't make tea for anybody else because that'll stop them getting up, but make tea and coffee for yourselves. So the add-on benefits, Christian, are that absenteeism and presenteeism cost the country, I think it's £550 million a year. A lot of this absenteeism, presenteeism might be attributed to musculoskeletal problems that come from poor management of the computer work. And if we could reduce that, then absenteeism and presenteeism are very costly to the bottom line. Reduce that, increase your bottom line. So there are financial benefits for complying, and complying is not costly.
No, it's just about doing the basics well, I guess, but doing it thoroughly.
Yes, but understanding that you're helping the well-being and the bottom line at the same time. And it's not, you know, people who view it as a cost, it's going to cost us. It's a negative thought in today's world.
No, I fully agree with that. Have there been any or many changes in the kind of landscape since COVID? Because obviously we've gone from, you know, predominantly, in certain sectors anyway, predominantly working in the office 5 days a week to this kind of hybrid way of working where people are perhaps going in, you know, 1, 2, 3 days a week now and then working from home. And so they've kind of got very different setups at home than they might do in the office. Has that changed things a lot?
Oh, massively. Huge majority of employers now allow, enable, or some encourage people to work from home. The working from home environment needs to be assessed independently. So one needs to deliver the training of how to set up a workstation to everybody. An assessment needs to take place where that person is working. So if they're working both at the office and at home, a workstation assessment needs to take place at the home as well.
And is that something that, because I know, speaking generally to safety professionals and operations people, that, kind of getting back into the office, training around policies and procedures of certain things around the office has kind of not been, has been a challenge in terms of, knowledge has lapsed and so on and so forth. So have we found quite a good take up of this in terms of the remote work spaces, or is it still something that we're perhaps lagging behind a little bit?
No, I don't. In my experience, I don't think it's changing very much. I think there's a general push from the top to get people back into offices. It really comes down to the individual, whether they can work better, more efficiently, more productively from home. Certainly, in a lot of cases, it reduced the costs both to the employer and to the individual by working from home. The counter argument is that there's a lack of team meetings and things like that, but things like Zoom help. So I think to me, it would be up to the individual methodology and ethos of a company as to how they want their staff to work. But it'll end up being the best way for them.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So in terms of thinking about this issue then, what would be the kind of key steps or the key philosophies or the key sort of points to consider when going about doing a risk assessment and a policy and a procedure to make sure that it is, sufficient and ticks all those boxes so that they're in that sort of 30% of excellence that you mentioned earlier?
Well, I would you could do research and speak to the HSE, or on the HSE there's a lot of data. The key really is to train people. So you need to have the knowledge that you can pass that on. So you can pass that on through online training course systems. You can produce it any way you want, but the key is to record the fact that the training has been understood. It's no good setting somebody in front of a video or an online course unless you actually record their understanding. So, and this goes back to Mrs. Clark and the Met. A wee while ago, Mrs. Clark had the training delivered through a video. Sometime later, she was incapacitated with bad back, couldn't do the ironing, couldn't do the work, sued successfully because the employer couldn't prove that the training had been effective. So deliver your training, deliver a test, mark your test, make sure that you can prove that the training's been effective, and then you deliver an assessment. So the assessment needs to cover all the key requirements of the regulations, their work environment. So the chair, the setup, the environment, the noise, the light, workload that needs to take breaks, equipment. Is your monitor? Do you have a separate keyboard and mouse for your laptop? There's a lot of data up there, or just go to a good professional DSE specialist, and they can provide all necessary things for you.
Yeah, so it sounds like many aspects of health and safety that there's quite, it sounds on the surface quite simple, but actually there's quite a lot of depth and breadth to making sure that you get it right. But I mean, for anybody that is listening to this or perhaps watching this at home at their working from home sort of station, what are there any 2 or 3 kind of key things that you could advise people on what they should look at and consider just from their own personal perspective?
Now you may at home you may be working from not a typical, maybe for a dining room chair or something like that. Now in an office that wouldn't be acceptable. At home, as long as you're not in discomfort and it's comfortable, and that your feet are supported or on a footrest or hitting the floor. The key is to listen to your body. Your body will let you know pretty quickly whether there's something that's troubling. So whether it's the neck, whether it's the knees, the back, and if as soon as your body tells you there's a problem, listen to it, get up, have a stretch. It doesn't matter what you do, just
Move about a bit.
Blood flowing through the system, nutrients, oxygen through to your muscles, and it doesn't take you don't need 5 minutes, you need 2 minutes just to get that shakedown. There's a term called static loading. Now, if you hold your arm up like this is in a movie from Sean Connery he was the Foreign Legionnaire, and they had to hold a bucket with water.
Yes.
Yeah, do you remember that? And we can all do that, and there's no problem. But you do it for a while, and that's called static loading, and it becomes painful. And your muscles have got to work hard to maintain that position. It's the same thing sitting on your chair. If you stay in the same position, your body is static loading, and your body will start to have to work hard to maintain that posture. A static loading, there's no flow of blood and nutrients and oxygen. So we need to listen to our body, get up and stretch. Don't work for too long to go. Recommended is 20 minutes. In reality, I know that 20 minutes isn't practical in the real work world. So what I say is just try and be mindful that you need to get up and stretch. Do it as often as you can. Don't try not to go for an hour without a stretch.
Yeah.
But any stretch and getting up, changing posture is better than that.
Yeah. I often sort of just change the way I'm sitting a bit and move around slightly, even if I'm.
The more you adjust yourself through the day, if you've got an adjustable chair, you can just back it back like this and take your phone calls like this. Whoops. So for home environment, set it up, have your training, set it up as well as you can, and listen to your body, take your breaks, and that's the best advice I would give. Yeah,
no, that's good. Good advice, Gerald. Thank you for that. So moving then to a more of a safety and health leader perspective. What are the key requirements to being compliant? Is it kind of what you covered before, that you just need to be making sure the training's done properly and checked, or are there any other key steps that we haven't covered yet?
I say there's seven core requirements, right? So training, a best practice for usage and positioning of all equipment and the environment, the workstation assessment. If there are changes to the workstation, so say in an office, if you move desks and things like that, then you need new assessment. If you're hot desking, the way for an employer to manage it is to assess every workstation that it complies. So it needs to have a footrest if needed. The monitor needs to be able to be adjusted, both focal length as well as height. And if the workstation is adaptable, then a separate workstation assessment isn't necessary at each one. Just one person or one workstation assessment. Two is you provide information for everybody. They'll tell them what you're doing about the DSE regs. There are minimum requirements in the regulations, pages of it, about the chair needs to have a 5-star base and adjustable in height and backrest. So there are minimum requirements that need to be met. A good assessment form will cover those aspects so that the employee will know whether they are meeting the minimum requirements. After that, it's taking breaks away from computer work, and you provide and employers need to provide a free eyesight test to a computer user. The lenses for computer work only, so you can't go and get Cartier frames or special lenses. But the basics, the eyesight test will be free, and the basic lens for doing DSE work are free. So hopefully, have I covered all 7? Training, assessment, minimum requirements, provision information, taking breaks. Yeah, I hope so.
Eyesight, yeah. Good stuff. I wasn't counting along, to be fair. So, and is there a sort of standardized approach then to kind of meet those 7 areas and achieve compliance, or are there different ways you go about doing it?
Yeah, the different ways. Yeah, I mean the one that seems to be, I suppose it really depends how many DSE users you have. If you've got a few of them, you could actually, the regs apply to anybody with 5 or more. So say if you're a small company with 5 or 6 people, you could actually, as long as you're trained to do so, the regs have got a stipulation of who should do assessments. So the assessor officially needs to be trained to be an assessor in accordance with the DSE regs. So once they've done that, they could actually physically go around to each person, deliver training, have a test sheet to be completed, carry out a workstation assessment face to face. When you get to hundreds of people employed as DSE users, this becomes really impractical and terribly expensive, both in time, because there's a time of the assessor and the time of the user, so you're doubling the amount of time. A good online course will deliver the necessary training, the test and the assessment, and all the risk management tools that are needed behind the scenes to record what the assessor's done and everything else. So I would have thought those are the 2. The other, well, in fact, it's still quite common. No training is given per se, no test is given, but a spreadsheet is posted out or is emailed out, and that's completed. And sort of, is your monitor at the right height, and do you have any? Right. Now that then comes back to the health safety guy, and they will then carry out, if there's somebody reporting aches and pains, they can manage it. But it's not, that's in the sort of 50% of poor DSE compliance. But it's better than nothing. But they're not helping themselves reduce MSDs and being really proactive. And if you're an employer, you're proactive, you get that well-being feeling from your staff. They value your contribution to their health.
Yeah. I mean, that's a recurring theme that comes through regularly on the podcast. That actually investing in the safety, health, and well-being of your team is not only the morally right thing to do, but it's also a smart business move to do as well. Definitely something we speak about here quite a lot. So if we look then at the overall picture, and you've mentioned the split of kind of where people are doing or organizations are doing well and where they're doing less well, are there any trends around the sort of common areas where organizations perhaps are not doing so well, as in it tends to be in these 1 or 2 areas and they have that in common? And then I suppose in the reverse, are there any areas that organizations tend to be doing pretty well at, but they've got other areas that they're lagging behind in?
The ones that do well and get good take up are those that, firstly, the management, top management embrace the idea. They've understood the value of people working without discomfort. Whether they send an email out from the MD, the CEO, a video, just some corporate communication to say, look, this is going to be rolled out. This is going to be a benefit to you. You can take your training to your home. So when you go on your computer at home, your staff, your wife, your kids, your husband, you can help them work at their computer at home without aches and pains. So please, embrace this training and this assessment. That that enables a higher take-up and enthusiasm for it.
Yeah.
The ones that are poor are the tick box boys. So, you know, they say, "Oh, we've done the assessment. We sent out an Excel spreadsheet." Well, it's hardly complying with the legislation. It's hardly showing great willing to get, you know, to look after staff. So in my view, they could be doing better to get a better return on their investment in staff. Cost a lot of money. They're the biggest investment the company made. So you've got to look after them, you know, and if you could give them a bit of training, assess their workstation, put things right, get them firing well, get them understanding that their employer actually cares for their health and well-being, then you're on a winner.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Again, it's a recurring theme that comes through, and it doesn't surprise me at all that, you know, what you're saying is that it's the people at the top that are making this happen, or not. So if there's a kind of ambivalence, then you end up with this kind of tick box exercise, and that doesn't help anybody. Whereas if there's a real passion and interest about people and performance, then we get good outcomes. And that doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
There is a groundswell of well-being understanding within the employment in employers today, and that's where I think DSE will become valued as part of that well-being package, as opposed to being a cost.
Exactly. Yeah, you want to be known as, you know, a good place to work, the employer of choice, whatever expression you want to use, but you want to be attractive to staff members to come and join you and work with you, and not go and work with one of your competitors. And everyone's got you know, free fruit and football tables nowadays, so what else can we do to stand out? Well, let's actually really look after people's physical and mental well-being. That'd be a good start.
Yeah, a great start. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Gerald, I know you've developed a tool, a scorecard tool, which will help people to get a sense of kind of how they're currently doing at DSE compliance. Do you want to just talk us through kind of how that works, what it does, and the benefits of using that?
Yeah, well, it's very straightforward. I think it's a series of 20 questions, which at the end of it, the AI that will analyze your responses and work out areas where you could improve, where you're compliant, where you're non-compliant, give you a percentage overall score. So it would be a great place to start. You know, looking at yourselves and how well you're doing. And it's free at the moment. So
perfect. So we'll put that into the link for that into the show notes. So wherever you're listening to or watching this, you can find a link to that and give the scorecard a go. And then I guess after that they can always arrange a call with you and chat through the results and kind of what you can do to advise them and help them.
Yes, I'd be delighted to hear from anybody who'd like to talk about their DSE, you know, what they're doing and what they might do to improve things. That's great. Yep.
Perfect. And then over and above the scorecard, what else would be the best way to sort of get in touch? Would it be to find you on LinkedIn or?
Well, we have a LinkedIn presence. We also have a website. If I can give the website.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah.
Hub Hotel Uniform Bravo -figure 4.co.uk. On there, the free trial of the software. Have a free consultation about what you're doing. Talk to us. We'd be very pleased to hear from you. We have clients who are global, multi expansion, used in all over Europe, all over the world, and we have SMEs. So everybody is welcome to join our family.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Gerald, for that. As I say, a topic that we hadn't covered before, and I think we've done a really good job of delving into the detail there and given everybody some good and solid advice and some next steps to take with the scorecard. And so hopefully people will do that, and then where they've got any areas for improvement, they'll come to you and you can give them some further help.
Fantastic. I'll be delighted. Thank you.
Good stuff. So thanks to you, Gerald, for joining me, and thanks for joining Gerald and I on this week's episode, and we will see you again next week. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Christian. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Safety and Risk Success podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit follow and do share on social media. Does anyone you know spring to mind as a great guest, even yourself? If so, please contact us on podcast@slipsafety.co.uk. See you next week for another episode.